happening in Connecticut right now. I just mentioned the fact that the assisted suicide bill did not make it out of committee, so it seems like it's done for at least this session. But there is gun reform being talked about, common sense gun reform. And then this just is an outrage. I mean, it's not going to end the world, but this is a state regulation. I knew it was going to happen. They're installing feminine hygiene products in all state buildings, government buildings that have boys' rooms. We will not be installing those in our church. Just to let you know. Joining us now is one of the good guys. Does a great job. Clear, concise, outspoken, not afraid. Great state senator, Rob Sampson. Rob, welcome back to the show. Hi, Rob. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Here. How about this? Is this better? Hi, Rob.
That's
are you
better.
there?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about the least damaging. Well, I don't know. It depends how you look at it. We've got this is a statewide regulation that affects all municipalities. That's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. But now we're seeing the installation of feminine hygiene products in boys' bathrooms, schools, state buildings, government buildings, municipal buildings. How widespread is it, Rob?
Well, Pastor, this proposal is part of something that passed back in 2022. And it was just one small section of a much larger bill, kind of like a budget correction bill.
Yeah.
But if you go look for that item and you look up Section 84, you find this one little paragraph that says, on or after September 1st, 2023, that every local board of education, every school across Connecticut will have to provide free menstrual products in the bathrooms. And that includes at least one boys' bathroom. And as you mentioned earlier before I came on, that is for young students as well, 3rd to 12th grade. It's sick. It's just more of that woke nonsense that's permeating our society. The progressive left, they're trying to break down our culture. They're
doing a great job. They're winning.
Break the family. Yeah, they break our economy, break the criminal justice system. They want to break it all down so that we are in a situation where people need the government to survive, that we become more dependent and usher in more socialism.
Oh, government, please save us. We can't help ourselves. We're not capable. Well, yeah, sure. When you break down society economically, spiritually, emotionally, morally, financially, I mean, when you break the society down, of course, what's going to follow is anarchy is going to follow, and of course, the government has to come in and rescue everybody. I was watching a blog the other day, and it was a fairly well-known conservative guy, and he was at some school or something, and being asked by a transgender person who identified themselves as an EMT. And accusing him of using, this is too simple. You're trying to explain it. This is far more complex. Transgender, far more complex. He said, well, let me ask you a question. You're an EMT, right? He goes, yeah. He said, what if you were responding to a call, an emergency, and you got there and you found out the person in distress was my pain is from the fact I'm suffering a miscarriage. He said, would you explore that as a possibility? And the EMT looked at him, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1000. No. Well, why not? Well, because it's not biologically possible. But yet we're always told, oh, look, when talking about climate change, look at the science. But for some reason, this is a topic that doesn't have to be filtered with science. It's just how any way you feel. I mean, what are we teaching these kids in elementary school, putting tampons in the boys' room?
Right. They're just trying to undo any notion that there is objective truth in the world and usher in this, this woke version of reality where, what's funny, not to change the subject, but I was thinking the same time you were saying that, about our education secretary yesterday being put on the spot in Washington at a hearing and refusing to be able to identify the word woman.
How
and what's so funny is that I know people. I didn't know Mr. Cardona personally, but I know people who do, and they always spoke very highly of him when he was in Meriden school system, and he was a stand-up guy, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what's happened. I don't know. If
I've known Miguel for years. I know Miguel's family. Miguel was our son's principal in elementary school. He was always a rational, common sense guy, and I think he got sucked into the black hole of government, and it probably somehow evacuated all common sense from him. I don't think. I'll tell you two things. Number one, I don't think he believes what he's saying. Number one. Number two, I don't think his family raised him to be this way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so what's the concern? You're going to lose your job in this prestigious position? They're going to send you to a re-education camp? I mean,
who'd want the job? If I got offered a job by the Biden administration at any level, my answer is probably going to be no.
Absolutely.
Will, do you want to be secretary? No, I don't want to be in your cabinet. I don't want to be around people like that. I don't want to be around you. I don't want you, there's nothing that would be attractive to me to serve in a Biden administration. And I don't know, we'll see. I guess we'll see how it turns out. All right, so that's ridiculous, and that's why implementer bills are so dangerous. It's just like on the federal level, the omnibus bills, because they can load all kinds of garbage in there stealthily in the middle of the night. Nobody knows about it, and then we wake up one day and oh yeah, that was passed 2 years ago. It says so right here.
Well, I mean, I don't know, Pastor. I don't know that it would be any different if it was a standalone bill. In fact, that was a standalone bill when it was going through the committee process. And in fact, somebody last night shared with me the Appropriations Committee vote. And in the committee, that proposal, standalone, not attached to anything else, passed with only one no vote. And kudos to my good friend, Representative Kara Pavlak, for being the one person to vote no in that committee.
Wait a minute. Were there other Republicans on that committee?
Yes, there were. And, this is something that happens all the time. And I will tell you, I mean, if there's a problem in the state of Connecticut, it is that my colleagues in the Republican Party are captives, effectively. They have Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know what it is. They are so fearful to stand up for American traditions and principles, to fight against the constant, woke nonsense and the injection of race and gender stuff into every bill and every proposal. So much so that, they hide from it. People don't speak up. And in fact, they vote for a lot of this garbage. And that's what has to change in the state, because I believe the people of Connecticut have had enough of this stuff. I think across the country, people are done with all of this nonsense. I mean, the pushback that we saw on Anheuser-Busch about the inclusion of their transgender spokesperson, it should be proof of that. But I have this conversation all the time with my colleagues, and they're like, no, we got to be careful. We don't want to alienate anyone. And, the thing is, what's frustrating is that they step right into the debate that we have with people on the far left about this stuff, who try and paint conservatives as somehow intolerant, and we're trying to, affect people's freedom. And nothing could be farther from the truth. There is a big difference between suggesting that someone should be able to live their life any way they choose. And I don't care. You want to, be a transgender. You want to cross dress. Go ahead. But that is a much different thing than trying to inject this lifestyle choice as a viable option for young, impressionable students in the school system. That is an entirely different thing.
Well, and you gotta thank God for the few people that stand up. Now, Riley Gaines is a swimmer. She went head to head against Leah Thomas, the guy who's a transgender woman from Pennsylvania, and they tied. They tied in a race. And she goes to the podium, and they go, "Oh, we have to give the medal. We only have one medal. We have to give it to Leah." And she said, "Why?" So because of the photo opportunities. So she tells a story. She tells a story about how the first time they were encountering this, and the guy's like 6'3". I mean, he's a monster. And she said, we're in our dressing rooms. We're getting changed into our swimsuits, and all of a sudden an absolute hush comes over the locker room. And she says, and she turns around, and here's this guy, Leah, whatever his name is. Here's this guy, naked, fully man, still fully male, standing in the girls' locker room, and all the girls are trying to cover themselves because that's the natural reaction. Most women still feel uncomfortable being undressed around a male stranger. And so, she said, we weren't warned. Our coaches didn't tell us that. Nobody tried to protect us. Nobody tried to stop it. I mean, this is abuse. This is outright abuse. And I want to know where the hell all the feminists are. The feminists who scream bloody murder about protecting women. Where are the feminists today? They're nowhere to be found. You can't find, they're quiet. They're silent on this. And then I get reprimanded about, oh, well, you're putting trans kids in danger. Well, that's not the intention, certainly. And if it is, it's unfortunate. But the problem is we've got predators in the school, and they're disguised as doctors, teachers, and counselors. And these predators are trying to push this agenda on little kids. And guess what? It's working.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And I think most people, regardless of how they identify, politically, I think most people agree. And, just the feedback that I'm getting on this one issue about the tampons in the boys' rooms in the town of Wolcott tells me that, there are very, very few people on the other side of that issue from us. And, I believe that this is a key factor that could be a comeback for Republicans in Connecticut and across the country if they would only embrace the idea that we should be the backstop to prevent this stuff from continuing. And I'm going to continue to speak out against it and tell people that, I prefer, more traditional American values. I respect freedom and people to choose, but I don't want this type of cultural decay and rot being injected by the government, effectively, through the force of government's power into my community. And I think most people will agree with that.
This goes so far beyond, well, you're not being kind, you're not being understanding. No, stop. Here's the problem. We're going to protect our kids. And you guys are not protecting our kids, and you guys are propagandizing our kids, and you're fostering mythology that will, here in Connecticut, and you know about this, they tried to put, I don't know how it passed, I don't know what the state of the bill is right now, but they tried to change the law for marriage. You get, with a parental consent and doctor's note, you can get married at 16 in Connecticut. They wanted to pump that up to 18. Why? Oh, you're not mature enough to make that decision at 16. But you're mature enough at 12 to decide you're going to change your sex?
Right.
I mean, this is insanity. This is insanity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There are many, many such bills. I mean, it's coming from multiple angles. But what I would suggest is if, your listeners or anyone happens to get into a friendly conversation or discussion with people about this, they've got to point out, that this is not about intolerance, that they don't care how people live. That's America. It's freedom and people have choice. But it's not the role of government to get engaged in this stuff. And I was asking people on social media the other night who were challenging me on this subject. How would you like it if they were handing out Trump hats in the grade school?
Sure.
Would you like that? Or Bibles? Or anti-abortion information, because it's the same thing. It's the promotion of an ideology that is certainly politically based, and it has no place in the school system. I year after year put in proposals to protect parents' rights, and one of the bills that I put in last year was about preventing bias in the classroom. Now, of course, people on the left want to call that censorship.
Right,
I'm not into censorship at all, but I do believe that classroom instruction should be age appropriate, and it should be approved by parents. Call me crazy, but I think those are two very easy qualifications to make for anything that goes on in a school. Yeah. But the Democrats, they just reject that out of hand. They believe fully that parents should have less say in the classroom, that government should dictate what's going on.
So what about this symposium that the UConn Law School held about parental rights and listening to some of and I've got recordings of things that went on in that symposium. I mean, these people hate parents. They want parents out of every aspect and I think that it should embolden parents to be more defiant, more militant, more radical, and demand of their schools and demand of their school boards exactly what's being taught in the classroom.
Yeah, it sounds very much like a communist country, doesn't it? It's the same thing. Yesterday we had a small lobby day for parents' rights. Yeah. Connecticut Republican Assembly was there. Moms for Liberty. My good friend Susan Zabahansky from Families for Freedom, Family Institute was there, a couple of other smaller organizations, and they were there to fight against a couple of bills, particularly one that is all about these school climate studies, basically surveys given to school students, even young school students, fourth, fifth grade students, asking them very personal questions about their sexuality. Is there a gun in the household? Things like this. It's crazy. And what happens next, based on their answers? I mean, are they going to be sent away to some special re-education classroom to suggest that because their parents disagree with the woke agenda that's being injected into the schools that they have to be trained? It's all very, very concerning. And make no mistake, I mean, these people are as bad as the communists of old. They believe in the same philosophy. Yeah, it's here and now. I shared an article on social media last night about the Communist Party of Connecticut's list of ideas for housing law changes in Connecticut. And I went through the list, and I'm like, every one of these bills was proposed this year by the Democrats. So tell me, what's the difference between the Communist Party and the Connecticut Democrats right now?
There's a rep that represents Meriden. You'll know her name. Hochul? Is that?
Hochadel. Jan
Hochadel. She was asked point blank publicly. She's in close with the communists of Connecticut. Got her an award, very much like Blumenthal. Asked point blank publicly, will you denounce the Communist Party? No.
Right.
I'll tell you something. Honestly, I feel like I'm telling you, my blood pressure. If you check it right now, it's off the scale. If it was up to me, and thank God it's not for a lot of these people. If it was up to me. If you couldn't pledge absolute fidelity to the United States Constitution and to the Constitution of Connecticut, you should not be allowed to run for office. And you cannot do that. If you're a supporter of communism, you cannot pledge fidelity to the United States Constitution, and you should not be allowed to run.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The problem is that the people that we live with in the state, our neighbors, seem to be electing these folks. And I don't know what the reason for that is. I don't know if it's because they're just not aware of what these individuals stand for or how they vote at the state capitol, but they're getting elected. And if we're going to change anything in the state, we've got to change the hearts and minds of our neighbors. And that's why it's so important for people listening to be unafraid. I think we've spent the last, decade as conservatives. I think most conservative people are introverted, conflict averse, live and let live kind of thing. And as a result, when people start bringing these things up, we tend to be quiet and, just let it go. We can't do that anymore because it's pervasive, and the failure of each of us to stand up and say, no, this is crazy nonsense. You're not bringing that to my school. You're not going to pass this bad law. Is allowing it to happen. And I encourage everyone wherever I go to get as educated as they possibly can about what is happening in Hartford. It's easier to testify on bills than ever, by the way. Nowadays, you can just zoom in for 3 minutes and state your piece. And I will tell you, it will make a big difference. There are bills up there. I always use the example of a bill that had to do with the expansion of Medicaid benefits to undocumented illegal aliens up to age 26. Yeah, that bill's going to pass and become law this year. I have no doubt about it.
Let me just, in the last minute I've got, Rob, let me ask you the gun control bill, the governor's gun control bill with open carry and ghost guns and waiting periods. Where is that right now? Is that going to be passed? Is it going to be voted on? Where is that bill?
Well, it passed out of the Judiciary Committee recently, and its next stop is going to be the House floor because it's a House bill 666.
666. That's appropriate.
Yes, exactly. And, so who knows what form it will take. I suspect there may be some changes to it before it gets debated on the House, but it will be hotly contested. We gave a pretty good fight in the Judiciary Committee, myself and a few other strong conservatives, Greg Fishbein and Doug Dubitsky and some others. We all made some pretty strong comments on it, and we will fight it tooth and nail as we have in the past. But, the Democrats are emboldened. They won a big election in 2020 thinking that they weren't going to. Or 22 rather, and I think that they're just emboldened. They think they can do pretty much anything and be untouchable.
And more people will leave the state. You got more people leaving Connecticut and coming, and besides taxes, there's reasons for that. Rob, we got to let you go. Thank you so much. I'd like to have you back again, cover some of these things in more depth. But thank you so much. You do a great job. Please, keep speaking for common sense and truth up there, and protect our you know what's, and maybe we get a few more Republicans up there will transition into males and grow some intestinal fortitude. That would be nice. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Pat.
Okay. All right.